If you think of Blight, you probably don't picture something like this parking garage. But New York considers it blighted. That's because blight is a word with more than just a negative connotation. It has the power to unlock billions of dollars for real estate development by opening the door for governments to seize private property for public use. Just look at New York's $40 billion plan for Penn Station, or LA's $2 billion Angels Landing project. Even Seattle's famous Pike Place was transformed from this to this on the basis of blight.
It can be the basis for deciding that the area should be condemned and redeveloped.
But these redevelopment projects don't hinge on the same interpretation of blight, just the word. Here's why blight is so tough to define, how it's used to redevelop cities, and why its use is a source of heated debate. Blight has been blamed for increasing crime, drug use, and unsanitary conditions in neighborhoods across the country. But the standard isn't the same across every legal code. Take Pittsburgh as an example. Here, blight could be a building used for an immoral purpose. In Columbus, Kansas, foot-tall weeds check the box. In Washington state, being a menace to the public was the rationale used to classify this motel as blighted in 2015.
What is your standard that you use to determine blight?
Blight is it's a difficult term to define precisely because it's used in a lot of different ways.
Amy Levine specializes in land use and municipal law.
She has exceptional knowledge in the area of eminent domain and was integral in drafting our legislation.
In general, it's used to identify the land that should be part of a redevelopment area.
And once land is identified as blighted, the stage is set for eminent domain, giving the government the power to seize the property.
If the government needs to build a school or build a road, they can go in and they can take property from private property owners and then use it to provide those public purposes.
New York and the agency in charge of the Penn Station project, Empire State Development, are using eminent domain after deeming these blocks as blighted, the conclusion of a neighborhood study in the spring of 2020. Some of what Empire State Development called blighted includes this building with its missing windows, cracked curbs, and ADA inaccessibility. This white storefront was cited for its stained windows, scaffolding, and cracked sidewalks.
Empire State Development needs to meet certain conditions to be involved in a project, and they do that by making a finding that the property is substandard and unsanitary.
Then the state can slate the buildings for redevelopment using eminent domain.
This Penn Station development is crucial for us.
On these 8 lots, the state is proposing new skyscrapers, which it says will help fund major improvements to Penn Station, as well as cosmetic upgrades like cleaning up these drains and the stained walls. But governments across the U.S. have used eminent domain for decades. Just look at Seattle. In the late 1950s, city officials started declaring neighborhoods blighted and began redevelopment.
Your city is engaged in dramatically revitalizing several of our older neighborhoods.
Some residents said blight designations targeted low-income neighborhoods and minorities. That project faced opposition back when it started. In a letter, one resident called it grossly unfair. And almost 60 years later, Seattle passed a resolution on how the forced acquisition of a church property, which occurred as part of that project, hurt the local Black community. Today, that land is part of a city park.
A lot of people think that urban renewal is over and not still happening, and so they call them different things. In the case of Barclay Center or Penn Station, it's economic redevelopment.
And relocation still occurs. These are all the businesses that might be displaced by the Penn Station project. It's a main reason why some people living and working in the Penn Station area are opposed, although relocated residents are given just compensation or fair market value for their property.
I think people do, in a lot of cases, get the sense that the basis for the condemnation is a little bit subjective.
Residents in the Penn area are responding in similar ways as Seattle residents, 80 years later. One lawyer even filed a lawsuit to urge New York to disclose communications with real estate developer Vornado, the largest private stakeholder in the project. One watchdog group estimated that Vornado may receive up to $1.2 billion in subsidies during the project. Vornado declined to comment. Empire State Development said that Hochul's proposal is what New Yorkers and Penn Station deserve.
So the main part of the lawsuit, it is about the issue of blight. The way the law is set up doesn't make it particularly easy.
A government's ability to use blight to seize property has been challenged in the past. One case even reached the Supreme Court in 2005, which held that governments can take property for the purpose of promoting economic development.
Economic development is a traditional and long-accepted function of government.
As construction begins in the Penn Station area, so will the legal cases against it.